What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast fame, of Yahoo Sports fame, of Forbes fame, and of OnlyFans celebrity. He has agreed to help us finish chugging along with our offseason look ahead series, which we are very appreciative to him for. The Chicago Bulls are getting the Hardwood Knocks offseason look ahead treatment. Not preview, not outlook. These are look aheads. They're fancier, they're smancier. They are offseason look aheads. Mort, before we belly flop in to all things Chicago Bulls, how the heck are you?
I'm doing very, very well until I learned just now that we're talking about the Chicago Bulls. So we'll see is my answer.
I lured you here under the false pretenses of we were going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets, and you were just all excited. Little did you know that look ahead already went up, and so I tricked you, duped you. It's on to the Bulls. Let us begin. The core question here, Mort, I think is, so what's the plan? It's a cliche question, but they've given extensions to Billy Donovan, which is probably fine, not necessarily inspirational, but fine, as well as Arturas Karnisovas, and that's not fine, and I'm going to tell you why it's not fine. It wasn't publicized. It kind of leaked after the fact, and anytime that happens, it kind of proves that the organization knows it's not going to be received well, and if you're embarrassed by extending your front office, you probably need to look inward and wonder, is there a problem with the front office or the mandates that we've given them? So before we dive in, extensions, cap sheet, the whole nine, what's the plan here, Mort?
Oh, there isn't one, Dan. There isn't one. And there never has been outside of 2021 when that fell together because everything kind of relied on the health of Lonzo Ball. The team stopped planning, generally speaking. They have not planned for anything over the past 4 years. Everything is just happening happenstance because this is an organization that is flat out lazy, bad at what they do, from ownership down to management. Like, this is a team that finally, after decades of being behind the curve, changed their shot profile dramatically, started leaning into three-pointers, started leaning into shot optimization and shot profile optimization at the year where Cooper Flagg was in the draft, which, okay, fair enough. Like, better late than never. Weird timing, but better late than never. And then they fired their shooting coach, Peter Patton, who apparently was the main architect of this entire shooting movement, optimized shot profile movement, honestly, because he wasn't inclined to agree a whole lot with Arturas Karnisovas, which again speaks to one of the worst habits that is consistently present within the Chicago Bulls front office, which is they align themselves with yes men and people who have no fucking clue what they're doing. If someone smart speaks up, you're out of the organization, and that is a common theme, not just from within the organization, but if they have beat writers or someone else who asks them critical questions, oh, lo and behold, credentials are being pulled. This is hands down the most embarrassing sports franchise in North America at present, and maybe even the broader world when it comes to sports. It's a sham of a franchise and organization, and everything should burn to the ground from ownership down to the last ticket salesman in the office.
And with that, we leave with a shout out to Frank Ntilikina and apologies, Jared Allen. I wonder how many listeners we lost right there. But look. You're not going to catch any pushback
you think
from
so,
me on
though?
that.
You think so? Like, because
I think
fans are smart. Fans are smart.
I'm not. Fans are very smart. I think there are a ton of Bulls fans that are very smart, but I guess the most vocal, at least in our comment section, are always just, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Like, Patrick Williams is the second coming of Kawhi Leonard type stuff. So those people have probably already tuned out. But let's dig in to their offseason vitals. Very great little monologue from you, though, and it's actually terrifying how spot on it was. So the Bulls are going to enter the summer around about 53 million beneath the luxury tax and about 60 million beneath the first apron. This includes a cap hold for the number 12 pick. However, it does not include a cap hold for Trey Jones or, more notably, Josh Giddey. We'll get to him in a second. Regardless, the Bulls should have no issue accessing their non-taxpayer mid-level exception of $14.1 million. I look forward to their excuse as to why they didn't use it, and it will be so that they could use it at the trade deadline, only not to use it at the trade deadline when they cheap out. And they have all of their own first moving forward that they could trade. They also have a Blazers 2026 first. It's lotto protected through 2028. If it does not convey, it'll just turn into a second. That's an interesting one because you could now kind of see, maybe not next year, but 2027, 2028, that might be a pick that conveys. So in theory, they have an extra first round pick to trade. Any notes on that stuff before we get into some of the roster decisions?
You basically put it out as well as you could. So yeah, those were just fact based. What can I say? You're just lining out facts.
Josh Giddey, though, restricted free agent. How much is he worth? Now, I just want to lay out what his max could be. This is for reference, not an endorsement. He can get 4 years and $173.2 million, or 5 years and $224.2 million would be his maxes. He could also get, if they want to give him, the language of if you make all NBA, you get the extra max. He could get, I think it would be 5 years and $296 million for anyone who cares about that. Now, this is the part that we need your input on. There was the reporting from Mark Stein over at the Stein line suggests that Giddey or execs around the league believe Giddey is seeking something in the ballpark of 5 years and $150 million, and that he is expected to get it. So the core question here, Mort, how much is Josh Giddey worth?
So on your 4-year max, not proposal, but outline there, it says 4 years, $173.2 million. Let's just take the one away from that number.
I knew this was going to be spicy from you. Look, he hit his threes at a reasonable clip this year.
No. He hit his open threes at a reasonable clip.
My point was going to be defenses don't change the way that they're guarding the Bulls because Josh Giddey's hitting threes. And I think what's even more concerning for me, the vision is there. The floater might come around. Maybe the finishing gets a little better. What's more concerning for me is that defensively, he almost needs to be a 4 or just someone who's always on, like the most stationary perimeter player possible. And that has inherent limitations. And I think it's even more restricting when you have so many other fucking guards on your roster. Dosunmu, Coby White, Lonzo Ball, Javon Carter has got a player option. I don't know what, like, if you told me they signed him for 5 and 100, 4 and 80, I probably wouldn't bat an eye. And relative to the salary cap, we're talking between 15 and 20%. I don't think that's backbreaking. If you're going to go over that, I question what the logic is there. What is your end game as a team? What is your end game even if you view him as the asset? And here's my final issue. And this dates back to what they did with Patrick Williams last year. I'm not advocating for players to make less than they could, but the way restricted free agency is set up, the Bulls are going to be bidding against absolutely positively nobody. The Nets aren't giving Josh Giddey an offer. I will be floored if the Nets give Josh Giddey an offer sheet.
Yep.
So why are you giving him 5 years and 100? And this isn't just the Bulls, by the way. We've seen this with other teams where they just pay rather than have their guys go out and set the market. That's great. I want every player to get paid as much as possible. Organizationally speaking, though, it doesn't make any sense to do that. And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors this time of year, but if Josh Giddey gets $30 million a year or more on average, it's my belief that will age into one of the single worst contracts in the NBA.
The entire question you have to ask yourself is this. The Oklahoma City Thunder are currently in the NBA Finals, 1 win away from potentially winning the whole shebang.
Way to date this podcast, which definitely will not be coming out until after the finals.
Well, okay. But regardless of whether they win or not, how many minutes would Josh Giddey average for the Thunder in this series?
Well, didn't we kind of see it last year in the playoffs? It would be fewer minutes than he averaged during last year's postseason.
And presumably lower than 10. Probably less than 10. It'll be, he'll be end of rotation caliber minutes. It wouldn't be starting minutes. It wouldn't even be close to starting minutes, actually. Wouldn't even be fully fledged rotation minutes. He is not someone who impacts winning to that extent. He had a fantastic run in March, and he did get better at certain elements. Like him realizing that he's 6'8" and can actually get to the foul line. I will give him that because he started realizing, I need to go downhill and use the fact that I'm taller than most people guarding me. And he actually began drawing fouls, something he was completely inept at for the first 3 years of his career. So that's cool. That's positive. he still gets wildly outplayed defensively. And moreover, even if you do say, okay, Josh Giddey, with all the warts and all, we're still going to give the ball to you. Like, you're going to have the ball in your hands. You're going to be our lead guard. What the fuck is the upside there? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Because if you're giving him $30 million a year and you're basically hoping that he'll raw stats his way to an all-star nod, which I don't think so because voters are smart for the most part, what is the end game? What are you trying to achieve? He obviously isn't much of an all-ball player. He doesn't bend defenses. He can't overwhelm you defensively. Well, he can, but that's in a negative sense, that he just has this negative ripple effect that everyone gets confused to where they are. And you said something extremely interesting in that he should guard power forwards. Over at Yahoo, I think in the fall, I wrote an article saying Josh Giddey's not a point guard, he's a power forward. I stand by that to this day because you can get over the shooting issues / concerns if you have more capable guards or wings on the floor with him. Because the Bulls kind of insist that he plays the one, they're looking at pairing him with forwards and wings. He is a wing. He is a forward. He is not a lead guard. Like, he can play a playmaking four who takes these opportunistic three-pointers. Now, that would be an interesting scenario because then you're not relying on him to be like the core guy who sets everything up and like your heliocentric floor leader. Now you're saying you're in the second or tertiary role where you're reacting to what the lead ball handler is doing. That I like a lot more. That would be a scenario where I could see Giddey even have more success than he did this year. Otherwise, if you're insistent upon placing him at the point guard position and just letting him have carte blanche, you're fucking yourself over in a way that is almost biblical.
Wow. Yeah, I think he, in theory, could have more value because the Thunder are just a different beast altogether. He has more value to a team like the Bulls when you want players who can eat innings in the regular season. But if you're aiming for something bigger, better, you don't go into this. Like, 5 years and $150 million, like, that's still borderline, like, cornerstone money. And I just don't think he's that. I think there's a place for, you outlined it, there's a place for him in the NBA, but it's viewing him as, like, a primary driver of everything for you. I wouldn't support it. Like, again, the price point for me is, like, I probably max out at 20 on an average annual value. And even that,
I can get to 20. I can get to 20. You can talk
he's young,
up to 20.
Maybe he improved, like, but yeah, it's just if he ends up getting $30 million or more a year, that, yeah, like you said, a failure of biblical proportions. Not a failure of biblical proportions. If anything, it's a win, but it's now become a problem for the Bulls. Coby White's extension eligible. The contract he signed, what was it, 3 years and 36, 3 years and 33, whatever it was, a couple years ago?
3 years, 36.
Great deal. One of the best in the NBA.
Yep.
Problem is now, in an extension, they can't give him more than 4 years and $80.8 million. You offer it, and if he accepts it, that'll probably make any contract Josh Giddey signs look that much worse. But he's not going to accept it. Going into free agency, again, just as a reference, his 4-year max from the Bulls next year, 228.6. His 5-year max from the Bulls, 296. And then a 4-year max from another team, 219.4. I think you can sit here and say, well, they don't have to worry about too much. No one's going to max him out. It takes one team. And it's not just about another team maxing him out, but he's an unrestricted free agent. Are the Bulls, even if he's getting sub-max money, do they have to include a 5th year? Like, does he get the OG Anunoby deal? 5 years, $212.5 million. That's like, maybe that's fine for a team. The Bulls are not that team where they're at in their competitive life cycle. And so I throw it to you is just, if you're the Bulls, because this is the other part of it, trading him is the probably correct call, but his value is already like on the downswing. Not as a player, but because he only has a year left on his contract, won't extend it. That team, his next team has to take it to free agency. They should have moved him last offseason or this past winter at the trade deadline. Now that you can't, the question here is twofold. do you just keep him at this point because you're not going to get a lot for him, or do you just move him? And then what's the minimum that you'd accept for him?
Oh man, you're playing all the Mort hits today. I love it. Look, they fucked up already by not moving him earlier. They just had this situation with Alex Caruso. They literally just went through it, and they ended up getting like 10 cents on the dollar for him by just getting Josh Giddey back.
That one's worse because he ended up signing the extension for which he still would have been eligible in Chicago.
Well, he signed that extension because he realized that's a place where basketball actually wants to live. Yes. So I'm on fire today, sir. Here's the thing with Coby White, right? This dude is a competitive guy. Like, I know every NBA player is that, but he is right up there among the best. He, in terms of like his competitive fire. There is not, like, you would have to almost perversely overpay him for him to consider a return to the Bulls. Like, why would you, as the Bulls, just keep him and hope to retain him a year from now in free agency? Because here's the thing. He can go out there on the open market where there are going to be a significant portion of teams that can offer him similar compensation level, a much more serious approach to winning, just a team construction.
They can offer him hope.
They can offer him hope. Yes. They can tell him, we have you now. Like, you know, the thing when you're like you're getting people out of burning buildings, like firefighters are getting out, that they were covering them, not in towels, but this glitzy thing. That's what a new organization could do with Coby White. They've just rescued him from a burning building. They're going to put that towel around him. They're going to give him something to drink, and they're going to look him deep in the eye, and they're going to say, we've got you now. You're safe. You're safe. Okay?
It's incredible.
That's where we are. So why would the Bulls imagine in any way, shape, or form that they act as a genuine threat to signing him, really? Like, why would they think that they're actually in the picture here? They should trade him right now for whatever the fuck they can get, because they already missed their window. And they are so incompetent when it comes to asset management. Caruso now, Coby, Caruso last year, Coby now, and frankly, also, Coby is in the exact same situation as Dosunmu. So, like, he's a secondary situation of this. Same thing. Got him at a great deal. Didn't move him when the time was to do so. Like, it's so bad. But I will give the Bulls this, Dan. Like, unbelievably enough, I will give the Bulls this. I do think the 140% rule or extension limit does screw over teams that do a good job, because we can say without a shadow of the doubt the Bulls did well in re-signing Coby White. Like, they got him at a great deal, one of the best in the league. So that's also a shame that the league and the CBA can thus say, hey, you know what? You did a great bit of business there. Now we're going to screw you. That's also tough. Like, that's not great. You want to be able to retain your guys. But the rules are what they are, and the Bulls just don't understand how to make the most of them. And as such, they wasted their opportunity. Now they have to flip him. And you were asking me what's the minimum you'd accept? I don't know. A protected first?
Wow. Because,
I mean,
what's interesting, too, is, like, two of the teams that we liked him the most for are just kind of off the board in Orlando and San Antonio. When you look at what San Antonio is, their draft.
But there's a team that's entered the conversation, sir, and they're playing in the finals right now.
OKC. We talked about him with OKC, I think, leading into maybe it was me and Grant that they, but yeah, I mean, that offense, and I actually think that you posted this on social media. The Thunder, we're recording this before the finals are over. The Thunder could win the title, and you can't sit there and think that the offense is just going to be okay moving forward.
Correct. They need another scorer, and specifically, they need a scorer who can stretch the floor. Like, so many of their guys right now in OKC are just not hitting their threes to the point where you have to get someone in. Another name I also pitched for them, I know we're talking about the Bulls, is Malik Beasley, by the way. I would love him there. Like, just flying under the radar off of everyone. But Coby White is another player. You can get him because, one, the salary just makes a ton of sense. Like, what's he at? 12.8 million?
Yeah, he's at like under 13 for next year.
Like, the salary matching component can be done in your sleep there. That's
But
so easy.
I think with them, the problem is you're almost doing that as either a 1 or could you say a 2-year rental because his next contract, and then in conjunction
Right.
with J Dub and Chet getting paid, and then worrying about Shea. Another team I had thought about, like, would you do Vooch and Coby White for RJ Barrett and a first round pick?
Why not? Why not?
I think the Bulls would say that that's not enough.
Oh, well, I mean, look, again, the Bulls could say that if they wanted to trade him at the trade deadline or last offseason, then I would agree with them. But, like, what's the alternative right now? Losing him for nothing in free agency.
I would, he'd be great on the Los Angeles Clippers. I wonder if they would be able to. I wonder if they could get, because all their first round picks, they could trade up to 2 firsts, but they're just so far off into the distance that if I'm the Clippers, I'm kind of like, that's what's tough with them.
You know what? It's just a general rule with Coby White. You can find 20 to 25 teams where we go, oh, he'd be great there. Because Coby, I think, is going to be like the next plug and play guard who is just like, you can pretty much piece him in everywhere.
Ooh, Minnesota be fun. That'd be great.
Well, think about it. He can play off lead guards.
Yep.
He can be sort of a lead guard himself. He can initiate pick and rolls off the dribble. He's a great catch and shoot guy. This guy will fit into virtually every single offense on earth.
You think they should go? You think the Kings should go back to the Bulls? Well, get a little Coby White in there. Maybe,
I mean, they're already going to trade Sabonis for Vooch and stuff because, right? So, look, there's so many teams that make sense.
So to wrap it up quickly, we agree he's not going to get an extension because he's worth way more than that. Do you think that he is on the Chicago Bulls at the start of the season?
What you're really asking me is, do I trust the Bulls to do the right thing?
Do you think the Bulls will trade, whether it's before the season or by the trade deadline? Do you think that they will actually move him?
Yes, at the latest at the trade deadline. Yeah, I do think that maybe the online pressure or maybe ownership suddenly has a good day and actually does the smart thing by going to management and saying, hey, look, we're going to need something.
Some other notable extension candidates. We're not going to talk about Javon Carter, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Zach Collins are also extension eligible. We're not going to talk about them. The two that are semi-interesting, Dosunmu. Vooch, they could extend for 4 years and $134.7 million.
Don't give him any ideas, Stan.
I hope he gets like 3 years and 90 or something. That would be
fantastic.
That'd be so funny. My prediction would be that they don't extend either of these guys.
No, I don't think you can with Dosunmu. I think you want to, but yeah.
That's another guy where it's going into free agency. You should probably look at moving. And I think the problem with him, though, unless it's part of a larger construction where you're taking back money a team doesn't want, I don't think you're not getting a first round pick for Dosunmu. Maybe like, I don't know. Are the Nets going to give you one of their late 20 picks? Like to get like, would they do something like that?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about like, what about this draft?
He damn near fits into the room exception, the non-taxpayer. He almost fits into the freaking mini mid-level. He doesn't. So there's like, if Detroit.
I have an idea.
Go ahead.
I have an idea. Like, so the Brooklyn Nets, right? They can absorb his deal. Like you'd have to make agree to the deal now and then make it on July 1st or June 30th. But like they also have the 26th and the 27th pick. Like one of those picks for Dosunmu?
As the Nets, that's interesting because it's like he'd be fun there next year, but you have to view him still as like kind of we want to pay him to stay next summer because he's the type of player that's only going to help your team. He won't ruin a tank, but I question like why do you want him on your team? Like that would be about
there's logic in the madness here because let's say he plays really, really well for them. Then at the 2026 trade deadline, although he might be like a half-year rental, his contract is so small, so meager. It's like let me just double check here. 7.5.
Yeah.
7.5. So like it might be a long-term investment. So the Nets give up, let's say 27, right? And that's barely a first rounder. Like it's so late of a first rounder as almost possibly can be. Now you turn up his trade value over the course of the season. Then some team is like making a push. They're like, oh, we need a guard. It's easy to match money. Maybe you actually squeeze out an unprotected first for a team that's desperate to just get that.
Yeah, if you're taking back some, especially if
Right.
they still have cap flexibility to take
Exactly. So
Yeah,
that
that's
means that the
interesting.
Nets would have flipped 27 for an unprotected first.
in. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. Unprotected seems like stuff, but I guess it would be
then
from a good
slightly,
team.
lightly protected. Then
I think there's a chance that what you're saying is like you get Dosunmu now for 27, and then you might be able to get the 20th pick in next year's draft or something. It's
okay,
kind of
that's fair. Yeah, but like then you at least go up 7 picks for
yeah. That's what
for
I
nothing.
don't have an issue
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if the Bulls would do that. Just knowing the Bulls, but yeah,
Don't
He
make
should-
me laugh, Dan.
he's just another guy that should probably be moved given their
Yeah.
their competitive horizon.
Absolutely. Lonzo
We-
too, for that matter.
Well, I mean, we got to get into this then. What is their biggest need? Like, if
Talent.
you're looking, just talent in general. So you're not looking at like, there's no one on this roster that makes you think twice about getting anyone at any position.
No, not at
Okay.
all.
I think that's fair. Modest Buzelis comes closest, and that's just like he's still not good enough for that.
And I like him a shit ton. I will give the Bulls credit for or will I? He fell into their lap at 11. Like it would almost
Nah,
be egregious if they didn't.
That was like no, that was like at that point in the draft, it's always a choice. Like it's just it's very
okay,
rarely.
but they chose right, so I'll give them
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
I love him, but I'm not at that point where I'm willing to say, oh, like if someone good, like even better, is right there. Like for example, I'm a big Colin Murray Boyles guy, right?
Same.
Like if he's there, I'm not gonna say, oh, we can't pick him because we have Matas Buzelis. No,
No, yeah, for sure. There, and I would probably agree with you. I do think they could use if you were to kind of like game it this way. I think they need like wings of the future and a center of the future. They
Mhm.
just don't have that. Like, because you could look and say, all right, maybe it's Coby White. He'll probably be overpaid, but sure, the guard position is set. And just Modest Buzelis is just okay, a hybrid forward. But like, if we wanted to, they're kind of in a similar boat to the Utah Jazz. They just have more. I don't even know if they have more talent. They play in the East, is really what it is. They need a cornerstone. They don't have that primary. I don't think Modest Buzelis is that, and I don't think the number 12 pick is going to yield that either.
do they need a cornerstone? I was under the impression they needed just like 8 to 10 good guys.
Well, then either way, you're describing a team without Josh Giddey. I feel like so.
Right.
So to look at it this way, set the over under 1.5 of these players being moved over the offseason. Coby White,
Okay.
Io, Nikola Vucevic, and Lonzo Ball.
I'm actually going to go over. I think Vucevic and Lonzo are possibly going to get traded, and Io is not someone who I'm like.
That's,
Ruling
we're
out.
talking about Raptors packages, Lonzo and Vooch for, I don't know what the money is. Like, are you sending Pirtle out in that, or would you prefer to send Barrett and then some compensation? That's an interesting trade.
Okay, I'm just going to let the listeners know I'm recording this at 1 a.m. That's why I'm turning into a 15-year-old, but I definitely want Lonzo Ball on the Raptors just so they have digging balls. Like, we need that. We need that. We need that so bad.
But they need to sign LiAngelo so that they actually have balls, plural.
Oh, that's true. Plural.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Or they could trade for LaMelo if they really want to, but
Why
LiAngelo seems
not?
like he might be more available.
Why not?
Dick and balls, yeah, that would be
We
great.
need that. Yeah, we need that.
I'm
No,
just-
I
I
love
think-
that, though.
I think that's what their offseason needs to be about, is because they have in Vooch, in Collins, in Kevin Herter, even
Yeah.
Io DeSumo and Javon Carter, but they're just smaller sized. They have a lot of flexibility moving forward. So I think the priority for them is to, one, don't ruin that flexibility by overpaying Josh Giddey. Like by having that money spill on to next year's. Like, again, if he's at 20 million, sure. If we're talking 30, 34 million or something just ridiculous, no. And then be opportunistic, though, if you're gonna, because honestly, I don't know if they need that flex. They don't need as much flexibility as they're about to be lined up for, but be opportunistic. Can you send out these expiring contracts for money that a team might not want, and you're getting some first round compensation or a young player flyer, and then preserve some of your flexibility so that you can continue to do what other teams have done. I think the Wizards have done an excellent job of
Yes.
this. Whereas
But
they've been creative with how they're taking on veterans and contracts. Look at what they did with Rashawn Holmes last year. They tacked on an extra year so that they could lower his number a little bit last season. Now you have this, I'm rounding down, this $13 million non-guaranteed salary that you can guarantee for the full amount and move as an expiring contract, or for whatever amount you need to complete a trade to make the math work. This is what the Bulls need to start doing. And they have it's interesting. They've nailed some identifications of talent. When you look at Vucevic and Coby White and Dosunmu, even the Lonzo Ball trade, remember people panned? And again, he got injured. But like when he came over, that made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They've missed on their bigger swings. The Patrick Williams at number 4, that atrocity of a Vooch trade. Jalen Smith was a good that's admittedly, like they hit a double on that or whatever. They've never mastered getting the big things right. The Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey swap. And that's why you can't trust them to get the Josh Giddey contract right. You can't trust them to do anything that we just laid out. Trade Coby White. Preserve flexibility. Capitalize on that flexibility. If I'm a Bulls fan, like I'm pretty, and by the way, the extensions given out, I don't really have a problem with Billy Donovan because it's what else is he supposed to do with this roster? Is it uninspiring? A little bit, sure. But the extending the front office, and again, I don't even blame AK for this specifically. This is an ownership problem. You laid it out at the top. If you're a fan, I don't know how you trust the Bull. Like, how are you just on board or trust that there's better days, not just around the corner, but on that long-term horizon? You can't. But I think if you're looking for hope or silver linings, the signals need to be given this offseason with everything we just talked about, where if they move Coby White, because when they moved Zach LaVine, we both agreed they placed too much stock in getting their own pick back, just given the way the protection was. But it was sort of like, oh, okay, like the bigger picture is sort of being prioritized here. If you go through this offseason and like you're not using these expiring contracts to like help get assets, or if you're not moving on from guys that you have no business paying or that are going to leave after next season, that's just a further red flag. And so if you're a Bulls fan, I think you're just looking for a harbinger of something, anything that shows this franchise is operating with the smallest, faintest semblance of forethought.
And, well, I don't think they are for two specific reasons. Well, one reason, but it's split into two.
The logo on their jersey, yeah. That's
well, that too. No, this is a team that rarely trades. I mean, we often go a year and sometimes even 2 years between trades, like any trade within the Bulls. This is also an organization that doesn't want to build through the draft. So that means you're taking 2 out of the 3 possible roster construction tools out of the equation. You're basically saying, I'm going to try to build a contender, not just with one arm on my back, but both arms and one leg. And that is what just completely infuriates me as an analyst when teams and this isn't just the Bulls, like the Miami Heat frustrate me to no end because, we'll never rebuild. Like, we'll always try to win. There's always going to be like a natural tipping point at some time where you're going to have to face facts and say, look, we just don't have more juice left. We don't have any more flexibility left. It's time to start over. The Bucks, very, very soon, if not already this year, are like they're entering into an existential crisis. So, but the fact is, the Bulls, who have had so many opportunities to actually go back and say, all right, let's utilize the draft. Hey, let's utilize these trade assets that we have, some of which are worth 2, maybe even 3 first-round draft picks. They sit on them because, we don't really do trades. They go into the draft and they're like, oh, we're not going to trade up. We're just going to take whoever, and it's probably going to be between 11 and 15. It's the passivity of it all, of them refusing to look outside of free agency signings. They're acting as if they're entering the summer of 2001 and not 2025. And that is historically what's been their problem. They're always behind the curve. And I realize that I sound like a guy who's just piling on and shitting on them for no reason. Look, everything I'm saying here is actually true. I'm not trying to paint them more negative just for the hell of it. I have no interest in that. I'm an analyst. But this is a team that fails to recognize their own advantages at almost every single turn. And when you refuse to do what is historically been proven as the right way to construct a team. And also when you have so many teams around the league who do it and do it well, and you're left with that mindset of going, well, good luck to them. We're not going to do that. Then you are going to let those moments pass you by again and again and again. So in terms of your question, why should Bulls fans be optimistic? I'm sorry, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't. There is no reason for them to be. And I hate to say that because I don't want to take enjoyment away from fans. If fans love to see Josh Giddey, put up triple doubles in meaningless games and hope that he's the future, good on you. That's great. But you should be aware that that's not going to be a thing. Like, not the triple doubles. Those are probably going to be a thing. But if you think that he's going to turn into like a franchise leader and he's going to win you 55 games and you're going to find yourself in the finals where he snakes the pick and roll and like pulls up for key middies and wins you the title, no. Just no. That's a dream scenario.
I'm with everything you basically said, and I think that's why if you are, because I do believe that like franchises can change, but when ownership is staying the same, it's very difficult. What you're looking for is any of the things that we said should be done. If they get done, it's okay. Like maybe they're considering some of these slight changes. And you had said something, we were recording something else that made me think like, you know what would be a really good signal, or maybe it's terrifying because it could be cut both ways. If you just said to the Sixers, take your pick of all our expiring contracts to make the math work. We will give you 12 plus those expiring contracts for number 3 in Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
That would be something where it's okay. Are the Bulls doing it because they think Joel Embiid's going to win them a title next year? Or are they doing it because, the number 3 pick, we think Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe is just the guy that we can start to build around?
You and I would do it for the picks. They would do it.
And maybe the Sixers would do it if it's Paul George too, like instead of Joel Embiid, like whichever one. You take your pick.
Right. One final point. You and I said we would record for 20 minutes.
I'm putting this one on you. I'm putting the length of this one on you.
I'll take it. This is actually a question for you because this is something that this is a question I get asked a lot as well, especially from my Danish audience. And it's one that I keep like spinning in my head whenever the subject of the Bulls come up as well. Do you think the franchise itself even understands like the obvious benefits that it has also historically and from a branding perspective and like from a international perspective? Like this is still one of the most well-known sports franchises of all time because of Michael and Scotty and everyone there.
Patrick Williams, yeah.
Patrick Williams. This is a team that should be so far more attractive to play for than what they are. And they never seem to understand the benefit. Like they play this as if they're a mom and pop shop. Oh, we don't want any drama. It's fine. Like we'll just play it easily. Oh, if we go, like we just want a small profit margin. That's fine. Whatever. Oh, and it's the Bulls. They always want a big profit margin. But my point is they don't act like they're a big like a big energy team, right? Like the Lakers, the Knicks, the Celtics. Like they don't embrace their history in that way. They don't use it as an asset. They are not aggressive. Are you of the belief that they could change internally and like become a more attractive team if they actually embrace that?
Yes, but I think what the problem is a lot of the factors you laid out are why fans still pay attention and attend the games, to where some of these other franchises couldn't get away with decades of just sort of futility. Right. And decades might be overstating it. They had prime Derrick Rose at one point, like they were fairly relevant, but because they have that historical cachet and it's just one of the most loyal fan bases in the game, and like they have the international recognition, they're sort of still coasting on the coattails of all that.
Oh, I don't think there's any sort of. They totally are.
And so it's do you think that if the Bulls change, yes, I agree they could capitalize more on all of that. But do you think that all of that built up goodwill or appeal or cachet, whatever you want to call it, is almost doing them a disservice because they have no reason as a business model to change?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no, that's a really good point, honestly. That
Don't I
because
make
of
a
it,
ton? Don't sound so shocked, sir.
no, I'm
Damn.
sorry. I'm sorry. That's a real. I hadn't thought about that specific perspective before, but that's very true. Like it might just be we're satisfied with this. Like we don't need to apply ourselves. Where I am of the mindset that if you went out and invested more in, you know, proper coaching staffs, training staffs, what have you, scouting staffs, because the Bulls historically are being run as one of the shortest staffed teams in the NBA. Like if you
Especially
did
now that
more,
the Lakers are going to be owned by like not a mom and pop shop anymore.
right, exactly. So, I mean, if they changed their ways and actually were able to squeeze out wins more by embracing analytics, by being more thorough in the draft, by approaching new age elements, and they suddenly became, you know, a year to year 50-win team, I would personally think they would stand to benefit more, even financially, from that. I
Oh
think
yeah.
they would have a more, but why? If it's all about the Benjamins, then I don't understand why they're rejecting that notion.
I think when, even though they're run like a mom and pop shop, when you're operating something at this level, there is an inherent lack of patience. And I can liken it. I'm sure our listeners
Mhm.
are tired of hearing this, but like look at the state of sports media.
Yeah,
If you want more in-depth coverage, like we've decided just because this is what certain data says about everything has to be fake trades, everything has to be short when it's written, or it has to be short, digestible video content on shorts, or these are the debates we need to have on TV because it has the rage bait on social media. There aren't outlets that are big enough that can stomach change enough to get to a point where there's a payoff for all that you're doing to be, in that case, it would be promoting more critical thought. But in this case, it's to get to a point where you're a flagship franchise, not on reputation, but on what you're actually doing
right,
now on the
right.
court. And I don't think everything is about, it's like a year to year, month over month type of thing, is that no one takes the longer view anymore. And I think it also, in part, like windows in the NBA are so fleeting that I could kind of see the appeal as a business person of just like, yeah, we're just going to squeeze as much juice out of this team each year and like capitalize off that goodwill that's already there. But like, we're not at the point where it's the NFL and there's a team that could be 2-15 one season, comes back and is 13-4 the next and wins the Super Bowl or something. Like the NBA, there's still a trajectory, whether it's, the builds last a little longer. And by the way,
Mhm.
that's the other thing that should be frustrating to fans is that you could rebuild and you're not going to turn, the fan base at this point is probably eager for it. But like
Yeah,
all the safeguards that are in place to like ensure that your fans are still showing up, that should kind of prove that, hey, we could go through an actual rebuild to get to a point that it's better. But you need, I think so much of it, and it doesn't just apply to running a basketball team, comes down to the stomach for experimentation and suffering shorter term losses so that you can get to these longer term games. And I think we've seen it with other franchises. Shout out to the Sacramento Kings. And we've seen it with the Knicks until like this era that they're in. Like not all organizations are willing to do that, and none of it ever makes sense.
Mm.
And the Bulls just aren't being harmed by it as much as some other teams would be. Financially speaking. I mean,
no, I get it. It's so depressing because I honestly think, and it's not because I was a Bulls fan for 22 years. Like I do think there's so many fans of that team that are nice, patient, very, very smart. Like they put themselves into the minutia of the NBA and of team construction and whatnot. And all those people have more or less voiced what you just said. Like if you go through a rebuild, if you start to build through, so-called proper channels, we will show up. We will buy tickets to watch your 17 win product. And yet the Bulls keep telling them no. We will stay as depressing as ever. And it almost feels as though they keep doing it just to spite fans at this point. They're not, but it does.
they're clear. They understand. I go back to we're coming full circle here. We opened with the extensions of the front, like
Mhm.
AK and Billy Don. Like the fact that the AK, like that's supposed to be a celebratory extension when you extend a front office or even a coach, that
Right.
this is for a job well done. They absolutely know how the fan base feels. And the fact that they continue to just fly in the face of that is akin to shitting on the fan base,
Correct.
in my opinion. So that's where they're at. And look, if any of this seems too harsh, I will believe that the Bulls have changed when I've seen it. And I'm not talking about one move, but like sustainable change. And they have to earn that, and we just don't have any evidence that they're going to travel down that course.
Correct.
This offseason is all about Chicago ensuring we get dick and balls in Toronto. I think that's how we can nutshell this, right?
I love that. Yep. That. See, why don't I really have an OnlyFans? That is my content right there.
Mort, can you tell our fine listeners, watchers, subscribers where they can find you and all the work that you put out?
Yes, you can find me over at Yahoo Sports. You can find me at Forbes. You can find me at the NBA podcast. And if you speak Danish, you can find me over at the podcast called Buzzer Beater. And if you're on Blue Sky, I'm there at MSJ NBA.
Until next time, and as always, we give a shout out to the one, the only, the player who will never suit up for the Chicago Bulls because he has a moral compass, Mr. Frank Ntilikina.